to you briefly.
Briefly, yes, ma'am.
How many questions do you recall them asking you?
Not many.
Okay. And let's talk about these photos. Move it up. Thank you so much. All right, so here's the one photo. So there's people here, right? On a busy day at that hotel, there's people walking around.
So, on a busy day, people could be anywhere in the hotel.
And outside the hotel.
On this particular day, we were running out of cabs, meaning there were not enough cabs in Dallas to support the number or the demand that we had. So, I can't tell you if there's people out here and about doing the things. This is around the time people would be returning back from the game.
Thank you. So I'm trying to just understand, because I wasn't there, and neither were these 12 and 15 individuals. So there were a lot of people moving around in this area. Is that right?
At this time, there were 2 cabs in the cab stand.
Sir, it's a yes or no question. People, visitors, guests, employees. Were there people walking around this area?
Not at the time.
Not at 7:30
Not at the time. Not when I walked out there. It was literally me walking to a cab with nobody impeding my way to get there.
Okay.
There was not a crowd of people.
You don't know how long the cab was there, right?
I do not, no.
And then when people leave, and if they exit across this street right here, there are street lights that go across this road, is that right?
Not at the time.
Not at the time.
Not at the time.
There
Those
are
poles were not
cameras.
there. Those poles were not there.
I'm
I'm
not talking about these poles, sir. I'm talking about street lights in general to guide people to your hotel.
Along the
lights?
street?
Yes.
Yes, there would be.
There are lights, right? And those lights also have cameras for situations like this, so officers can pull those videos. Is that right?
No.
How do you know that?
I've never seen a camera in my time on me in the street, anywhere.
You've never looked up at the lights shining onto the road?
I've seen the lights. I've never seen cameras.
Okay. And then back here, there are cameras back here at the hotel. Is that right?
I don't know.
Officers didn't ask you to pull any of that information, did they?
Not at the time.
And then back here, is this the hotel or is this an apartment complex?
It's an apartment complex.
Did you see the officers go over there and discuss anything with anybody at the apartments?
No.
In regards to this photo, there's multiple ways of leaving the property at the Omni, is that right?
That's true.
You can go by foot, wherever you want. You can jump a fence, is that right?
If there's a fence, yeah, you could jump it.
Okay, well, let's talk about this retaining wall. How tall is that retaining wall? Because I recall it in the photo, it looks about 4 feet tall.
That would be my guess.
That's the same retaining wall that's blocking the taxi stand, you said?
Sure.
It's the same height?
About, yeah.
Okay. Nobody saw a 6'2" Arab man get up and walk around over that retaining wall? Nobody saw anything like that? Nobody told you that?
I did not. Nobody told me that.
I thought it was interesting to recall exactly how the shrubbery looked like. That time, you said the trees were not as thick or thin as they were in this photo.
Sure.
Recall saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you remember the shrubbery, but then all the other questions I've asked you about employees and stuff like that, you can't recall a lot? Out of curiosity.
I think that it's easier to remember the way something looks versus a person, a name, things of that nature. I just know that the trees along that area were big, and it caused that area to be dark. So if there was a street light, that light would not shine in that area.
Non-responsive, objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
You had mentioned that it was really cold and dark
Yep.
that day.
Yes, ma'am.
So do the trees have leaves when it's really cold in January in Dallas?
At that particular moment, I wouldn't be able to tell you if that had leaves or not.
To pass the witness.
Anything else for this witness?
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
May this witness be released?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can be released. Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Officer Bracey.
Would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you. State may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Bracey, can you state and spell your name for the court reporter?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Richard. Last name is Bracey, B as in boy, R-A-C-E-Y.
And your first name?
Richard?
Is yours spelled out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I didn't spell it. It's R-I-C-H-A-R-D.
Are you currently an officer?
No, ma'am, I am retired.
You're retired?
Yes, ma'am.
And you retired from Irving PD?
Yes, ma'am, September 30th, 2018.
All right. And you do not live in Dallas County anymore, is that correct?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. So you retired and took off?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I do want to take you back to and just jump into the incident on January 1st of 2008 involving Irving Police Department.
Yes, ma'am.
You were a patrol officer at the time?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Okay. How long had you been a patrol officer at that time, or an officer?
I was sworn in 1989, so I'll have to do maths. 20-something years.
Okay. And you get a call or a dispatch in your report. How do you receive this dispatch? Or you're receiving information from the 911 call taker in your patrol car?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? Okay. And this is around 1944 hours, would that be correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Or do you get this call later?
It
No,
was,
1944 hours, so 7:44 p.m.
yes, ma'am.
And when you get that call, what is being relayed to you?
The dispatcher is relaying to myself and another officer that there's a 911 open line coming from the area of Las Colinas and Wingren.
In Wingren, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And can you explain to the jury what's an open line?
It's trying to just think of the easiest way to describe it. It's kind of like a butt dial. It's the operator is hearing, can tell that there's an open line, but no one is talking in the background. They're not hearing anything at that time.
Okay,
So someone's called 911 and they're not hearing anything at the time they're getting the information.
okay. And based on their information back in 2008, it's showing up somewhere around Las Colinas Boulevard and Wingren area, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is that Dallas County, Texas?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
In fact, all of Irving is in Dallas County, Texas, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what do you do when you receive this call? That it's an open line, that someone's in distress?
I proceed to the area. My shift was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., so I just come on service. This was my first call of the day. I started heading towards Las Colinas and Wingren, and when I got in the area, the dispatcher said the line was still open and they couldn't hear anything. So I circled the area. There's a lot of parking garages and multi-story condos, apartments, hotels. So it's just not looking on the street. You have to think vertically as well, where everybody could be.
And without much information, I mean, what information are you giving at
It's,
this time?
the only thing we're given is that it's in the general proximity of Las Colinas and Wingren.
Okay, so you're not giving us a car description,
No, ma'am.
you're not giving a suspect or a victim description.
No, ma'am.
And in cases like this, do you normally, when you're looking around, I would think some people are like trying to flag you down, right? So you get some help at least.
Yeah, and that's when we get one of those calls. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody in distress, an accident scene, something that would lead someone to need 911 first responders, whether it's fire department, police department, so forth.
Because at this time, you have really nothing to go on except an open line call.
That is all.
And all you have is dispatch telling you where they believe that the call is coming from.
Correct.
All right. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Bracey, I want to show you some marked states exhibit number 4. Do you recognize this?
Yeah, it's the Las Colinas area of Irving.
Okay, just an aerial view of the Las Colinas area?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do you believe that if we use this map to talk about where you went and where the Mandalay or the Omni Mandalay is would be helpful to the jury?
I believe it would.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to offer into evidence states exhibit number 14.
No objection.
All right, thank you.
State's exhibit number 14 is admitted.
All right, permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
Would you grab this back? Oh. And where the jury can see it. You can also step down. Can you step down? Can y'all see it okay? Okay. Sorry, this is being a little awkward. If you can show us kind of where you were when the first call came out.
When the first call came out, I was leaving the North Station, which is O'Connor Boulevard, and that's pretty much north and south. They've changed the name of North O'Connor to Riverside now. It goes all the way up to 635. Our North Station's up off there. So I came south down Riverside and turns into O'Connor. And Mandalay is here. This next street, it's barely at the bottom of this 2-lane right here, is Wingren. So I came down O'Connor and circled this area. There's high-rise apartments, condos, a lot of apartments here. We have a multi-story hotel. We have multi-floor parking garages in multiple locations. There's a lot of condensed urban area. Circled the streets, didn't see anybody in distress flagging me down or anything.
At this point, do you, are you communicating with 911?
I'm communicating directly with the dispatcher.
Dispatch, I'm sorry.
So the 911 operator is relaying to the dispatcher, dispatcher's relaying to me.
Perfect.
So I circle the area, I'm not seeing anything. So this area here is kind of the center of where it's, we call it ping, where it's bouncing off the towers. So I turned my lights and siren on and cruise up and down around this area and asked the dispatcher to ask the 911 operator if they can hear my siren. So if they're up on a different level of a parking garage or something, if they can hear my siren, at least they know I'm kind of getting close. Dispatcher says 911 operator can't hear my siren, so turn the siren off and continue looking in the general area.
Okay. Are you asking dispatch at this point to ping?
Yes.
To give you more information, to ping what they can from this phone number that's calling them?
Yes, ma'am. So when they can't hear my siren, I ask them to re-ping the phone. Because at this point, we don't know if the person's in a car, walking on a bicycle, and left the area. So when they re-ping the phone the first time, it bounces down off Loop 12, which is the east side of Irving, further south than what we're at.
All right. Still in Dallas County, Texas?
Still in Dallas County.
Okay.
So at that point, it's pretty far away from me, so we give it a couple minutes and have them re-ping it again. Now it bounces back to the Four Seasons Hotel where they hold the Byron Nelson, or used to hold the Byron Nelson golf tournaments, kind of over off to this side over here. There's a gated community on the back side of it, and it pinged in there. So at that point, dispatch had someone call the gate guard into that gated community and said, hey, has anybody pulled through the gate looking like they're in distress, walking, or anything like that? At the same time, since I'm not hearing my siren here, I drove over to that gated community and start looking around that gated community to see if I can find anything.
Okay. Is there a DART bus station or a bus stop, a Greyhound or a DART
So
bus stop near the Omni or near?
there's DART small dark bus stops where it just starts and picks up like individuals on the side of the road, multiple places up and down Las Colinas. The big dark transit center where the train comes in and out of and the buses is up here. So this is O'Connor. It goes up, it curves right up here, and when it makes a curve at the north end of Las Colinas, they just changed the name of the road to Riverside. So right at Northwest Highway and Riverside, which is the old Northwest Highway in O'Connor, is where the dark transit center sits on the northwest corner.
Okay, so off this map, but fairly close.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so I'm sorry about that. Will you continue? So you went to the gated community.
Went to the gated community. It was relayed to me that there was no signs of distress, anybody coming in either gate into the area. I wasn't finding anything. My partner, or another officer who was assigned as a call officer rather, he wasn't finding anything. He's also checking behind me, kind of like a double blind. We always double check to make sure somebody didn't miss something. So at that point, it was early in our shift. Like I said, I worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's a very high volume call time. We're not finding anything, so I get assigned to another call at O'Connor and Northgate, about 1.5 miles south of a domestic.
You go to that call, you clear that call. About how long does that take you?
It takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to get up there into that area,
And you clear the call. About how long did it take you? Do you recall?
it was like 5 or 10 minutes, because that call was actually a non-locate. We got there to the intersection of the call, was a domestic of a man and a woman with a child having a fight. We got there was nobody in that area.
Okay. And so after you clear that call, what do you do?
So when I'm clearing that call, I'm asking dispatch to re-ping the phone again and to see if they can get a hold of, try calling the phone number back.
And when they try to call the phone number, do you know what happens? Do you recall?
A message was left, it went to voicemail.
It went to voicemail. Okay.
So I'm up at O'Connor and Northgate, 1.5 miles or so away, and as I'm having them re-ping it again, we get a call from 911 saying that at the Omni, which is, if you see the circle here, that's the main entrance into the Omni, and this is the big hotel.
And you get a call that what?
That there's 2 people, the dispatcher relays it as 2 down in a car.
2 down in a car. Okay.
Which in lingoese is there's 2 people unconscious in a car. So I go, now it's,
Would this be about somewhere close to 20, 35 hours? What's that? 8:35?
it sounds about right.
If you said you arrived on scene at 8:35?
Yeah.
Okay, and you were fairly close to the Omni?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So when I got the call, the 2 down, I immediately asked the dispatcher to call the fire department and send ambulance and fire
Okay.
to
May I first
that.
witness, Your Honor? You may. Before you sit down,
Yes.
I just wanted to point this out. So you're saying this is the Mandalay Hotel right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that
This is
correct?
the parking garage. This is the main tower to the hotel. This is the front door going in and the conference area over there.
Okay. And was there a cab stand? Can you show on this map where that cab stand would be?
So if you see this heavy tree canopy right here, if you come in here, there's a little drive that goes underneath this tree canopy and pops back out right here, just on this side of the circle. So the whole cab stand's covered by trees. So you just can't see it in this picture because of the canopy cover. But this is where all the taxis queue up, waiting for the doorman at the hotel to flag them over. Somebody needs a cab, and get picked up.
Okay. Okay. And, well, here, have a seat and I'll continue questioning. When you get to, do you go into the main entrance of the hotel?
Yes, ma'am. So I arrive and I come through the main entrance just off that circle there off of Los Colinas Boulevard, basically coming head-on into the taxis.
Okay, and the Omni Mandalay is also in Dallas County, Texas, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
In the city of, may I approach the witness, Your Honor, again? You may. Mr. Bracey, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Can you just look those over?
Yes, ma'am. Exhibit 15 is,
Hold on, just
sorry.
look them over and just
Yeah.
look at all of them and tell me if you recognize these photos. You recognize what's depicted in the photo. Your recollection of that night.
Yes, ma'am.
You did not take these photos.
No,
but
ma'am.
This is what you saw when you got to the Omni Mandalay. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
All right. At this time, Your Honor, I wanted to offer into evidence State's Exhibits 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, photos that have been previously tendered to defense.
No objection.
Thank you.
State's Exhibits 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 are admitted for all purposes.
All right. So, it was dark at the time, right?
Yes,
It was
ma'am.
nighttime on New Year's Day. This is the first picture of State's Exhibit 15. This is just the entrance to the Omni Mandalay, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So if you're looking at that circle, when you come off of Los Colinas, that is in the center of the circle. This is the circle drive that circles around.
Alright. And I'm gonna show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 16. You come across and, is this the taxi that you were told that had the two people down in it?
Yes, ma'am. This is the car that they flagged me down and said the people were in.
Judge, can we dim the lights maybe just a tad because of the glare?
That would be the light from overhead, I believe, that's
Oh,
glaring.
you're right, I'm sorry.
Is that all right?
No, it's on our end, not yours.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, so when the dispatch told you that two people were down, they also told you what vehicle you'd be looking for, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the vehicle that you come upon?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. In this, this is what I'm guessing the cab stand looked like, right? That blue car being a cab van
Yes, ma'am.
and the car in front of it?
Yeah, that's the orange jet taxi that we were called to.
Okay, all right. And when you come up upon the car, this is what you see in the front.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The State's Exhibit number 18. And you also see something in the back, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in State's Exhibit 19, when you look in the car, this is what you see.
That is correct.
All right. At this point, Officer Bracey, do you open up the doors?
I do.
Okay, and you're doing so because,
Check for signs of life, and there was not.
all right. Has anyone arrived with you at this time?
At this time, I believe it was just myself. The fire department hadn't quite made it on scene yet.
Okay. And once you find the girls and you check for any signs of life, what do you do next?
Tell the dispatcher that I have two deceased people at the scene, and that I need more units to help cordon off a perimeter.
How long does it take for those units to arrive?
Just a few minutes.
Do you, at this point, when you first get there, I'm assuming that you're trying to see if somebody's unconscious, if they need medical help. That's your first
That is correct.
thing that you're doing. And after that, once you decided on your own, that it didn't appear that there'd be any signs of life, you get everyone else to come in and search the perimeter, is that right? Or secure the perimeter?
Yes, ma'am. That's when we're asking, because at this point, we don't know if there's a suspect in the area, if there's more victims in the area. It's just very fluid and evolving. Excuse me.
And to that end, Mr. Bracey, what do? You don't know if there's a suspect in the area, you don't know if there's any more victims. What are you doing to, you know, move through this fluid situation?
Well, now we have a crime scene, and so I take control of the scene. The fire department arrives, and the medics, in Texas, police officers can't pronounce someone deceased. It has to be a medical examiner or paramedic, so the paramedics arrive on scene and say that there's injuries incompatible with death. There's
Sure.
the medics back away from the scene, and so they don't contaminate. At this point, it is a crime scene and there's evidence. So they back away from the scene.
At this point, the girls are still in the car.
They're still in the car.
Still in position that they were when you found them. You just checked for signs of life.
That is correct.
And so did the medics when they got there.
Correct.
Okay. The medics back off, and then what do you continue to do?
I make sure nobody gets in the car, tampers with it, messes with it, moves it. Once the other officers arrive in the area, Sergeant Dunlop arrived and started directing the other officers to what areas around there to start looking for victims or suspects or things like that. I stay with the car. The watch commander was Lieutenant Redburn. He decided, since we didn't have very much information to go on, that there needed to be a thorough foot search of this area looking for a suspect or victims. So he called out our tactical section, which is the SWAT team, and more for just manpower, because while this is going on, we still have all the normal calls, accidents, and reports being called in. So he calls in extra resources. The SWAT team comes out and coordinates a foot search and searches all the parking garages, buildings, balconies, down by the Las Colinas Canal, Lake Caroline's the big lake around there. And
Slow you down just a little bit, Mr. Bracey. I'm sorry to do this, but at this point, when Sergeant Dunlop gets there and you're just looking for a suspect, you really have no information on the suspect at this time.
Dispatch had relayed that when they had contacted Louisville, Louisville had stated, and I'm getting this from dispatch, that the girls had gone to eat with their father, and that the father drove a cab.
Okay, so at this point, you do have at least a description to try and talk to the person who was last seen with the girls.
Correct.
Okay. And with this information, do you recall the description or no?
Heavy-set male, and I can't remember the description of the clothing.
Okay, but you were giving a clothing description? Because again, he was the last person to be seen with the girls.
Correct.
And he drove a cab?
Yes.
Okay. Also, on State's Exhibit number 16, Mr. Bracey, when you get to this is how you find the car when you get there, is that correct?
That's correct. The lights were off, the engine was off, the keys were not in the ignition.
Okay. Keys were not in the ignition, and did you see any weapons in plain sight, in plain view?
I saw no weapons in sight.
Okay. Windows were rolled up?
Correct.
All right. Were you able to unlock the door?
Yes, the doors were unlocked.
Doors were unlocked, windows rolled up, no keys, lights off, engine not running.
Correct.
All right, so you have a basic description, you're looking for more victims, and you have a basic description of the suspect. SWAT team comes out, and all of you guys are looking around.
Yeah.
Are you doing some of the foot traffic as well, or are you
No,
talking to people?
Since I was first on scene, I stay with the car.
Okay.
I'm with the car, I'm with the girls. I'm sorry. So I stay with the girls. Lieutenant Redburn called out criminal investigations and the detectives and crime scene, and I stayed with the car. Crime scene arrived, and then I helped assisted Officer Hazard while still maintaining security of the scene.
Do you also talk to any witnesses out there that you can recall?
I did. When I
may
first,
not recall their names, but who did you talk to?
there were two taxi drivers, a male and a female. They were the ones that were there, and there was a doorman from the Omni that was there, and I got their informations and had them write a statement of what they saw and what they did prior to my arrival.
Okay, but to the best of your knowledge, they were not the ones that gave you any sort of suspect information.
They gave me no information on,
To the best of your recollection, they did not see anyone, in and around that car.
that is correct.
Okay. After you talked to these witnesses, you relayed this information to the sergeants or whoever's coming on scene. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then you stay with the car and you assist, Hazard.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know if they were able to get a phone number for Mr. Saeed, for Yaser Saeed, from the family?
Yes, they were.
Okay, and do you have knowledge as to whether they tried to call that number to contact Mr. Saeed?
Objection to hearsay.
I did not call, I'm sorry.
Do you know
Right.
if there was an attempt made to contact Mr. Saeed on that cell phone?
Yes, they did.
And do you know if if that was successful?
I don't believe it was.
Okay, in fact, do you recall that the phone was turned off?
I don't recall that.
Okay. After, okay. The foot search did not locate the suspect at that time, is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay, and after that, what do you do?
I stay with the car with Hazard, Steve, and Steve takes pictures and from the outside of the car. I know criminal investigations went ahead and got a warrant for the car to search it to recover any evidence inside the car.
Sir, can you move the mic closer, please?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Do I need to repeat that, ma'am?
No.
Okay. The, so they get the warrant for the car, process the car. The medical examiners called coroner for Dallas County. They show up. They take the girls.
Okay. All right. When the medics get there, do they also go into the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You mean I'm sorry, the medics or the coroner?
The
or
medics,
The medics? Yeah, they briefly opened the door and looked inside.
okay, and then the medical examiner as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. After that, your last statement is that you turned your witness statements over to Randall Johnson, who was the lead investigator at the time, is that correct?
I believe they actually went through my watch commander, all of our paperwork. I work out in the North Patrol section, and I believe they went through there. I don't know if criminal investigations picked them up from the North Station in hand,
Right.
or if,
You turned your paperwork in, I
Yes,
guess is what
ma'am.
I'm getting at, okay. Was that the end of any work or anything else that you did at the Omni Mandalay that night? In other words, did you move on to the next call?
yes, once the girls were taken and Officer Hazard followed the wrecker to the pound, then I was released from the scene.
Okay, so you followed Hazard, who followed the wrecker?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
When the wrecker got there and loaded up the taxi, Officer Hazard, crime scene, followed the wrecker with the car to the pound to make sure it was put in secure area to be processed.
and again, so that we're clear for the jury, you showed up at the Omni Mandalay around 35 hours. So that would be 8:35.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Officer Bracey, Mr. Bracey. I'll pass the witness.
Thank you.
Mr.
Defense?
Bracey, I have some questions for you. If I ask you anything you don't understand, just tell me, we'll get it cleaned up.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right. Let's look here at State's Exhibit number 16. I can't tell. Are the lights on?
Of the car?
Yes.
No, sir, they're off.
Taxi?
They're off.
Okay, so the car was totally off, there were no keys in the ignition, no lights on, but it was unlocked,
That is correct, sir.
okay? And then, before I forget, let me ask you this. You're looking here at State's Exhibit number 245, and there appears to be an apartment complex right here. Did you, anybody at your direction, anybody that you know of from the police department, ever go talk to anybody in those apartments, see what they had said, if anything?
No, sir, I did not. And
You
no
know
one
if
at,
anybody did?
and no one at my direction did.
Nobody at your direction, do you know if anybody else did?
No, sir.
Okay? Nobody while you were at the Omni came up and said they'd heard any shots or anything like that? Is that
No,
right?
sir. There was no statements of that kind.
And nobody had, said to you that they saw anybody around the car?
No, the first person who saw the car was one of the witnesses there, the taxi
Speak up a
driver.
little bit.
Pardon?
Speak up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. The first person who called us was one of the taxi drivers.
Right,
Then he's the one that saw people not moving inside the car.
right, but he didn't see anybody outside the car.
No, sir.
Nobody saw anybody walking away, nobody saw anybody drive up. How about that?
No, sir. No,
Nobody saw anybody, no, nobody saw nothing.
that's correct.
All right, now you said that you opened the car door. Did you find out if anybody else had opened the car door before you?
Yes, sir. The witness stated that he opened the door, the male taxi driver.
The male taxi driver?
Yes, sir.
And would that be Mr. El Hassan? Abdul Munaim El Hassan?
It's a really long last name. I think it starts with an A.
He told you he had opened the door.
Yes, sir.
And what did he say he had done when he opened the door? Which door did he open?
He opened the driver's door, didn't get a response from the front passenger.
Okay?
He went around to the passenger side, opened the door, saw blood, ran to the front of the hotel and got the doorman.
Okay, so he opened the front door on both sides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm sure one of the things y'all did was to get the fingerprints from that guy, right?
Crime scene officer Hazard will be the one who does all the.
Hot hazard, should
Yes,
you be able to answer that question? for
Yes,
me?
sir.
Okay. And then, for the jury's information, your fingerprints are on file with the department already, and they can look them up and compare them to prints from the scene, and so on and so forth. So is everybody who's a paramedic for Dallas County, and everybody in the ME's office, is that right?
Yes,
To your
sir.
knowledge. Okay. Now, you said that among the various people when, people who have been injured or dead are found who show up are the medical examiners people,
Correct.
paramedics, and CID, and in this case, you brought out SWAT, or they brought out SWAT.
Yes, sir.
Because you didn't know where the person who shot him was.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Now, what is the duty of the CID officer or department that comes out? Criminal
The-
Investigation Division.
The detective,
Yes.
they're there to oversee. I can tell you more of where I stop.
Okay.
As a frontline patrol officer, I answer the initial 911 calls, accidents, things like that. Because of the limited resources of departments, we compartmentalize a little bit. So when it gets into the further investigation where it's going to require calling extra people and making follow-ups, I work 7 at night, 7 in the morning, so it's difficult for me to contact people in normal people hours. So CID, they can flex their schedule and they can contact the coroner, AT&T and T-Mobile and get phone records. They can contact people at the hotel, witnesses, and they compile all that information and investigate further.
I'm sorry. Whose job is it to collect DNA and fingerprints from a crime scene.
That's crime scene.
That's CID,
Yes, sir. No, well,
crime scene.
I don't know if crime scene, I retired in 2018, and they moved things around under different divisions or titles, heads. But crime scene is their own unit, and have their supervisors, and they work closely with patrol and CID, hit and run for fatal accidents and everything like that.
So the way this progressed, you came out first, you were a patrol officer, but you took control of the scene until your sergeant got there. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then he takes control of the scene. And then the various departments started getting there, and they're doing their thing. And somebody, it was their duty to take DNA and fingerprints from a crime scene, right? Who would have done that?
That would have been crime scene.
That would have been crime scene.
Yes,
Did
sir.
they get called out?
Yes, that's Officer Hazard.
Officer who?
Hazard,
Hazard.
I think it's one Z, but it's Hazard, unless he has two Z's in it, but it's Hazard like Dukes of Hazard.
Okay. And he should have, did you see him taking fingerprints from the crime scene?
I do not recall him taking fingerprints there at the
Don't
scene.
recall if did or not.
Right.
Okay, how about DNA samples, swabs?
I did not see him taken at the scene.
You didn't see him taking any DNA swabs?
Well, I don't recall. We were waiting on the warrant before they processed the car. The car got loaded up onto the wrecker and taken to the auto pound where it was secured. And I know in the past, a lot of the forensic work is done there in a more controlled environment than out on the street.
And you said you were waiting for a warrant, would that be a search warrant for the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And you get those in all cases by going to the local magistrate or somebody, the judge, and explaining what the situation is, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then they give you a search warrant, which authorizes you to enter the vehicle in this case.
Correct.
Okay. And let me direct your attention back to that diagram
Yes, sir.
there that's there beside you. Was that a diagram from 2008 or is that taken in 2022? Now I approach it.
You may.
This diagram is it's definitely not 2008.
Definitely not from 2008.
I don't believe so.
Okay. This, we're referring to State's Exhibit number 14.
Yeah, these buildings here
Uh-huh.
are newer.
So those were not there at the time?
Yeah, so I'm looking for Connor Boulevard. This is William Square up through here.
Was William Square there at the time?
Yeah, William Square's been there since the beginning of Las Colinas. It was the start with the Mustangs out front. So this is all new construction there.
All this is new construction,
Yes, sir.
okay? How about this area down here that we're concentrating on?
This is all the same here. These apartments were part of the original Las Colinas project. These were here, parking garage was here. Can't remember the name of this big high-rise here, but it's been here forever. This building's been here for a long time. It's got some FBI offices in it. And the Omni was one of the original structures in Las Colinas.
Okay? All right, thank you. Now, I asked you about the surveillance system that they have there at the hotel.
Yes, sir.
And they do have a surveillance system, is that right?
I'll say
Correct.
yes, they had a camera outside, yes, sir.
They have 16 cameras taking different shots, is that right?
I don't know how many cameras, sir. I just know which
Okay.
one I saw that night.
All right. You went to, well, you seized the tape, right?
I was with Officer Hazard when he seized the tape.
You were with Officer Hazard,
Yes, sir.
okay? Now, first witness, Your Honor,
You may.
let me show you this just to refresh your recollection.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just read that part down there.
So what would you like for me to read, sir?
Mr. Lawler, what are you showing the witness?
Here you go.
This part right there.
Yes, sir.
I seized the tape.
What document is that?
It's a police report from the city of Irving.
Okay. Made by the witness?
Yes, I'm asking the witness about it.
Okay, so what, I'm not trying to be coy, but what exactly,
It's right there.
you have highlighted, I seized the tape.
Yes. Did you seize the tape?
No, sir.
Okay. So that's for Palm.
No, sir, this is Officer Hazard's report. His name's at the top and the bottom.
Okay, you were with Officer Hazard when he seized the tape.
Yes, sir.
And what day was that?
It was probably after midnight. It might have been before midnight of January 1st, so it could have been January 2nd.
Okay. So you had the tape since that night?
I never took custody of the tape, sir.
I mean, police department.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were with him when he got the tape?
Yes, sir.
And where'd you go to get the tape?
In there, I think it was a security office. It was one of the business offices
Okay.
there in the hotel.
And you know what happened to that tape?
No, sir. Officer Hazard took possession of all the evidence and processed it.
Is the cab driver Araya? Here, let me spell it for you. Arayakitifponj.
Any other shorter first name?
Aaron Arun,
Yes.
A-R-O-N.
Yes, sir, that's it.
And the Araya, Ayakitapon is the last name.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was the name of the cab driver that went up and opened the door.
Yes, sir.
And it's somebody's job to get fingerprints from him to compare against the prints they've received at the scene. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing that last
I'm
part.
sorry. Is it somebody's job to get fingerprints from him or her? I don't know if it's a him or her. Is that a him or a her?
It's a gentleman, sir.
It's me, okay. Somebody had the duty to get his fingerprints to compare to the prints that they would have recovered when they did the crime scene search. Is that right?
Well, that's out of my realm. That's a crime scene and detective thing not happening right there in the scene that I'm looking after. So Officer Hazard would be a really good one to ask that question to.
Okay. And was this, when you first arrived there at the scene, you said the engine was off and the lights were off and all that. Did you touch the engine to see if it was warm?
I don't recall.
Don't recall that one way or another. Okay, all right. Thank you, officer. That's all we have.
Okay, nothing further, Your Honor?
All right, may this witness be released? May this witness be released?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judge. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, does he take a leave if he says we have to bring in all of the physical evidence?
Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's be back at 2:10.
Your Honor. Your Honor, can we think of a matter before the jury comes back in? On the record?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready, Jeff? Is everybody ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's get on the record.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that the defendant is present for the witness. The state is present and we will have the presence of the jury. Yes, the defense has an issue to raise.
Your Honor, we'd like to revisit the subpoena issue that we raised earlier. Article 2403 of the Code of Criminal Procedure says that a subpoena application must be filed with the clerk and placed with the papers in the cause, or if the application is filed electronically, placed with any other electronic information linked to the number of the cause. The application must also be made available to both the state and the defendant. When a witness has been served with a subpoena, attached or placed under bail at the instance of either party in a particular case, such execution of process shall inure to the benefit of the opposite party in such case, in the event such opposite party desires to use such witness on the trial of the case, provided that when a witness has once been served with a subpoena, no further subpoena shall be issued for said witness. Our investigator went down to the clerk's office during testimony, Jim Spurger, and he spoke with the clerk, and the clerk represented to him that the application from the state instructed the clerk's office to seal from public view the subpoena application, the subpoenas themselves, and the returns. So the state, from that table, no one objecting, has misrepresented to this court that they don't know what happened to those subpoenas. They just went to the clerk's office and the clerk made the decision how to handle them. The clerk was operating under instructions from the state, and the clerk who indicated this to us is named Nadia Adeyanju, and that's spelled Adeyanju. At this point, we would reassert all the arguments that we put forward in our motion for discovery or Brady sanctions, because this, in concert with the state actively concealing the surveillance video, the statement from Edgar Ruiz, and the statement from Victor Huerta, warrants a mistrial.
Okay, what's the state's response to this matter of sealing the subpoenas?
Your Honor, I have no knowledge of that, but as for the misrepresentations that defense counsel's made about concealing a video, that never happened. Concealing a statement from Edgar Ruiz, that never happened. If we need to take up hearings outside the presence of a jury, I'd be happy to do so. We have officers who are willing to testify. They did not have a statement from Edgar Ruiz, and they did not receive one from him, although he did testify to that. They can cross those officers on that issue. We can have our investigator up here and talk to them about the subpoena issue, but we told them we'd give them contact information. They'd like to subpoena him to come and testify, they can. But more importantly, Your Honor, Mr. Waller...
I'd like to have one person from each side addressing me on this issue.
And I'm confused because defense counsel knew he was under subpoena. So what is the harm? What are they articulating is the issue and the harm? We gave them a full witness list. They know who we're calling. They can present their case as they see fit. But to throw around these accusations of misconduct and Brady violations whenever they're not getting their way, I think is going a bit far.
Okay, now, when one party subpoenas a witness, that inures to the benefit of the other party. My question to both sides is there a return? Is there a valid return that was filed regarding this subpoena of Joseph Moreno? Is that
No,
right?
ma'am. There are
Who are we
no-
talking about?
I'm talking about any subpoenas. We don't know who they subpoenaed. We're entitled to that information. There are no applications on file, there are no subpoenas on file, and there are no returns on file.
Okay, now, like I said, when one party subpoenas a witness, it inures to the benefit of the other party. If the other party wants to subpoena said witness. Now, you have a witness list from the state, including everybody that the state subpoenaed, I'm assuming.
No, we do
that's
not.
Correct.
We don't have that. And
We don't know
also,
who they subpoenaed.
if
We'll
they've
tell.
subpoenaed somebody, we cannot additionally subpoena them because the subpoena comes from the court. And you as the court only issue one subpoena per person. We don't know
Yes,
who,
I understand that. What I'm asking is, did you receive a witness list from the state?
Yes, that's who they
Yes.
plan on calling the
Okay.
case in chief.
And on that witness list, are the witnesses subpoenaed by the state? Is that correct?
No, it doesn't say that, doesn't indicate
we
that.
don't know. And we don't know who beyond that list they've subpoenaed, which we're entitled to know.
Okay. The question that I'd like to ask the state at this point, Ms. Black,
Yes, Your Honor.
did the state somehow get the district clerk to seal those subpoenas?
I'm not sure, not in my direction. I have to ask my investigators. I believe Summer Almazi went to go find one of them.
Okay, I'd like that information. Off the record. Is Deputy Hart on scene? Okay, Deputy Hart, can you, let the jurors know that we are handling some, business, and we will call them in as soon as practicable. Thank you. Okay, one moment. Record.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, would you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear that the information you will give or the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
You want me to take the stand or?
Yes, go ahead and take the stand. All right, I'm going to have the state lead Mr. Bruner, you're saying? State, go ahead and inquire of him whether or not the subpoenas were e-filed, whether there were returns made, etc.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can I have his name for the record?
Yes.
It's Investigator Rick Bruner. It's spelled R-I-C-B-R-U-N-E-R.
Your Honor, may everybody wear a mask in the court as instructed, including the prosecutors?
Yes, please put your mask on.
Apologize, Judge. Sorry. Investigator Bruner, how are you employed?
I am an investigator here with the Dallas County District Attorney's Office.
And you are here working on the Yaser safety trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's been an inquiry of the court on the subpoenas filed in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a question whether or not you had verbally or told or instructed the clerk's office to restrict or conceal or seal, I believe was the word proper term, seal the subpoenas on base.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you answer the court's question?
Yes, ma'am. I have the original returns right here, and it is Chapter 56, restrict on base. That's the standard that we've always used with our witnesses. There's different levels of, you can seal on base, you can restrict it on base. Now they've added a confidential, and then there's one, the ones that we use for like medical records, stuff that's going to have people's social security numbers and stuff on it, is usually sealed on base. But this is a restrict on base. We don't go down to the district clerk's office and tell them to restrict or not give this information. But this is a standard that we've been using since we've gone to the e-file system and since I've been at this office.
And so you do this in every case?
Yes, ma'am.
This wasn't anything specific in this case?
No, ma'am.
This is your normal practice in the DA's office?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Defense?
Mr. Bruner, who directed you to get those subpoenas?
The prosecution team.
Can you name them specifically?
It was ADA Lauren Black, ADA Summer Elmazi, and ADA Brandy Mitchell.
What is the authority under Chapter 56 for taking the subpoenas out of public view?
That I cannot answer that question.
Are you having subpoenas issued in every single case under this template so that they're not showing up for public view?
I was not aware it didn't show up for public view. We're not, we don't have anything to do with the on-base. We don't file our subpoenas through on-base. We don't scan them in and put them on on-base. That has nothing to do with our office. We get the subpoena template. We put our witnesses on there. We e-file it. And then we get the subpoena back and we serve them.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. He obviously doesn't know the legal authority for which this is happening. Could we get a copy of the template that he's talking about and put it in evidence?
Yes, but before you get off the witness stand, detective or investigator, are there returns?
Yes, ma'am. These are actually the original returns. So
And they were all on base?
they're e-filed. I don't know if they get put on base or not. We don't have any. I've been here 15 years. We've never had to put anything on base.
Your Honor, may I?
Your Honor, every one of our subpoenas is on base. Every one of them.
And Your Honor, I believe that the title of the subpoena application that was generated by the district attorneys, I don't know who, but somebody in their office generated that application to specifically cite in bold letters that it needs to be restricted. So somebody signed that application for the investigator to e-file and get taken care of.
And so, Investigator Bruner, you do not know why these subpoenas were filed as restricted?
That is the standard practice that we do. That's the way I was trained.
For every case?
For every case, witnesses are always under a restrict. There has been changes to e-file recently where there's a different level that's been put on confidential. They've actually changed. There used to be a Chapter 57, I think it was, and it's changed to Chapter 58, which we were told that's what you use for medical records, any kind of records that has extensive biological information on it.
Your Honor, may I ask one question of this witness?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, your testimony right now is that your office has been filing these subpoenas restricted to public view in every case in Dallas County.
I'm not saying the office, I'm saying when I do them.
So every case you touch, you file your subpoenas that way, violating the code section.
I file my subpoenas with the restrict on base.
How many cases do you touch a month?
I have no idea. Many.
Many.
I don't do subpoenas for many cases, but I touch cases often.
Let's say, how many subpoenas do you do a month?
Usually it's just for,
Objection, Your Honor, I've decided to go for this hearing.
This is a concern, Your Honor, and I think this needs to get on the record.
Well, let's restrict it to this case.
So all the subpoenas that you got done in this case were under restriction.
most of them. Like I said, when it changed over where we could put confidential under them, some of the subpoenas that I filed later on after this, this one was filed or served on May 27th. So after that, I've got some subpoenas where it's listed as confidential.
And who tells you to list it that way?
That's just how we've been taught. We'll get, direction that kind of gives us a general idea of what to use.
And you show that subpoena to the attorney to sign off on, right?
The application, they know, we get direction from the attorneys of who they want as witnesses. And then the investigators does the application, we file it, and then we get our subpoenas after that.
Who signs the application when you file it?
Either the attorney or the investigator for the attorney.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Investigator Bruner?
Briefly, Your Honor, were you told in any direction by myself, Ms. Mitchell, or Donald Mozzie to restrict these subpoenas? Or
No.
Right, no.
No.
So I just asked you to go and subpoena individuals that we possibly wanted for trial?
Yes.
Okay. And Investigator Bruner, can you produce the returns?
These are the returns right here for
Okay.
the witnesses that they were having questions about.
Okay. Does the defense want the returns on each witness that was subpoenaed?
Every
Yes.
single witness.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bruner, or Investigator Bruner, my apologies.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to produce those returns?
For the ones that I subpoenaed, yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Go ahead and do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Turn it over to the defense.
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, will that be all the returns in this case? Every return in Yaser Saeed's case that's on trial right now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's for the ones that do have returns.
The ones that I did personally.
Okay, do you have access to the returns for, regarding the subpoenas for other witnesses?
I could go
As the
through
investigator.
I could go through e-file and
Okay.
put in the case, and it's going to take a while though. It won't be done in the next 5 minutes.
That's fine. All the subpoenas that have valid returns, make sure you turn them over to the defense.
Yes, ma'am.
But in the meantime, which ones do you have in your hand?
Ruth Trotter and Joseph Moreno.
Okay, go ahead and turn those over to the defense. Those are copies, correct?
No,
Are those
they're the originals. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
would you
They've
make-
already been e-filed, so I kept the originals until after the trial.
Okay, would you make copies and submit those to the defense, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Off the record.
Your Honor, would you mind ruling on our motion for mistrial related to these events?
That's denied. Are both sides ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's bring the jurors in. And the witness may get back on the stand. Did we finish with the last witness?
We did, Your Honor.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Your Honor, can we get a copy of the template for the restrictions on their subpoenas? Your Honor. I'm sorry. Can we get a copy of the template for the subpoenas where he says that they were restricted?
Yes, I think that's part of what I asked them to turn
Can
over
we,
the
can we
template.
be more clear though, just so there's no issues exactly that we want the subpoena application and the returns?
All right.
Y'all may be seated. We're on the record. Let the record reflect that the defendant is present with his attorneys, the state is present, and the jurors are present and seated. State, call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Officer Hazard.
Thank you.
Officer, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And would you kindly move that monitor so I can see?
This is just,
That's good. The
I
little
feel like it's about to fall.
I know.
It's not gonna fall.
It's not? Okay.
Thank you. Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. All right, state may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Will you please state your first and last name for the court, spelling your first and last name for the court reporter?
My name is Stephen Hazard. It's STEVENHAZARD.
And Officer Hazard, are you retired?
Yes, I am.
Where do you currently live?
In Cozumel, Mexico.
Very nice. You enjoying the weather?
I am, well, it's a little cooler down there than it is here.
I figured so. Please tell the jury a little bit about your experience and when you worked at Irving PD.
I started at Irving PD in 1978. Everybody that starts as a patrol officer. I was a patrol officer for about 2 years. I transferred to the hit and run investigator, which works hit and run accidents and fatalities. I did that for a little over a year. Then I transferred to the Vice Narcotics Intelligence section. I was in there for about 4 years, and then I went to the crime scene search unit, which was the last 24 years that I was there. So in all, it's 31 and a half years.
21 and a half years. And you said how long were you working in the crime scene unit?
24 years.
24 years. Now in the crime scene unit, do you usually work alone or do you work in pairs?
Most of what we do is alone. Some things we do work in pairs or more.
And please tell the jury a little bit about what is required or what you do when you are processing a crime scene.
Our job is to take photographs and gather any physical evidence that's out at the scene, in short.
Take photographs, gather evidence, collect evidence,
Yes,
for any type of further prosecution. Would that be fair?
yes.
I want to direct your attention to January 1st of 2008. Were you called out to the Omni Mandalay in reference to 2 deceased persons in a cab?
Yes, I was.
Okay? And tell us, when you arrived, were there any other law enforcement officers there prior to your arrival?
Yes, there was.
Okay, who was present on the scene?
Sergeant Dunlop and Richard Bracey were there, and there were some others, but that's the ones I remember.
Okay. You said Officer Bracey?
Yes,
Okay. When you arrived, did you go to the taxi cab area?
I did.
Okay. Tell the jury what you observed when you approached that taxi driveway.
There was, the taxi driveway is kind of in front of the building and kind of in its own little area. There were 2 taxis there. There was an orange Escort or Ford that the 2 girls were in, and then there was a blue van taxi that was parked behind it. When I got there, the females were obviously deceased. So I began to take my photographs and search for evidence.
Okay. And these photographs were just of the exterior of the car, is that right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And why was that?
Because it was decided that we'd get a search warrant before we'd do any entry into the car. And so it gave me a lot of time to search the area and do everything that needs to be done outside the car.
How much time do you think you had to search the
At least a
exterior?
couple hours. It usually takes about 2 hours to get a search warrant, so it was, in a way, it's kind of nice for us. It gives us a lot of time to just do what we can, make notes and take photographs, search for physical evidence, and get ready for the next step.
Do you remember if it was lit outside or dark?
It's fairly dark in that area.
So are you searching with a flashlight or how are you looking around?
With a flashlight.
Okay. So what color was the cab?
Orange.
Orange. Okay, and it was in front of a blue minivan?
Yes.
Tell us, when you're looking outside of the cab, what are you able to view from that view without you entering the cab? What are you able to see?
I'm able to see what I call Amani, victim number 1 in the front right seat of the cab. I can see that she's been shot. I can see blood. I can see a shell casing on her shoulder. There's some items that are feet. In the back, there's Sarah that's in the back right area of the car, leaned into the door. She's been shot several times. I can see a phone by her right leg on the seat, and a shell casing on the floor, and what appears to be bullet holes in the seat beside her.
Okay. So you've used shell casing,
Yes.
okay? And I think most of everybody's familiar with the bullets, but if you could just educate the jury on what a shell casing is and what a projectile is, and how that goes all hand in hand with one piece of bullet.
Okay, a bullet is the entire thing together. So the shell casing holds the powder. The projectile is the front edge of the bullet. The shell casing is the back end of the bullet. When you stick that into a weapon and you strike the firing pin, it ignites the powder. It sends the projectile down the barrel, and then on like this type of firearm that was used on this, it ejects the shell casing out of the weapon. We usually have two types of weapons. One's either a revolver, which keeps the shell casings in there, or a semi-automatic or automatic, which ejects them out of the side.
Okay, so a semi-automatic would eject the shell casing out of the shell.
Yes.
Okay. So, tell me anything else that you observed before you got the search warrant to enter the vehicle. Did you see whether or not the vehicle was turned on or off?
The vehicle was off. The keys were not in the vehicle. The doors were all unlocked except for Sarah's. Sarah's door was locked. All the windows were up except the driver's door, which was down a little over an inch.
Do you observe anything else on the exterior of the vehicle? Anything on the driver's door on the outside?
On the driver's door, there was some cigarette ashes that had fallen down the window.
Okay. So no keys?
No keys.
Off?
Yes.
And windows up except partially down on the driver's side door?
Yes.
Ashes on the outside of that door?
Yes.
Okay, so at some point, you do get the green light to go ahead and search the interior of the vehicle after the search warrant.
Yes.
Okay. And tell the jury what you first see.
I start just by taking photographs of the interior of the car. Open the door. I started on the driver's side of the car, taking photographs of the interior. I can get closer that way to do the photographs that I couldn't have done, or that I did some of them from the outside when we were waiting, but the ones on the inside, I have to wait until we get the search warrant.
So you start on the driver's side of the car, and
With
you're
the photographs.
examining and collecting evidence on the driver's
Right.
side.
And trying to see where everything's located before we move anything. Because when we move things, and we want to make sure we don't lose anything.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Officer Hazard, I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 20 through 55. Will you please take your time and look through those exhibits?
Yes, ma'am.
Do the images in these photographs, do they clearly and accurately depict what you saw on that night at the crime scene?
The photos from 20 to 38, I believe, are at the scene,
And then auto pound,
and the auto pound the next day.
which would be January 2nd,
Yes,
okay? And that was all part of your investigation?
yes,
These are the photos that you took?
yes, they are.
Okay. At this time, State Officer States Exhibits 20 through 55, tending to Defense Counsel for inspection.
Well, good point.
20 through 55.
No objection.
All right, State's Exhibits 20 through 55 are admitted for all purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to public.
You may.
Officer Hazard, I think it'd be easier for the jury if we kind of went through your testimony and I went through the photographs at the same time.
Okay?
Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, once you have the search warrant and you're allowed into the car, you start collecting evidence, is that right?
That's right.
Okay? And you're looking for any shell casings or projectiles as you just described to the jury,
I am.
okay? Did you in fact find any shell casing and projectiles in that vehicle?
Yes, I do.
Okay? I want to go through with you exactly what you collected and what you found, okay?
Okay.
And tell the jury, do you have a system by which you mark these items?
I do. I mark them by letter, and I have, when I package them, as I mark them, I package them and put them in little containers, like film containers, plastic film containers.
Do you sign those containers with your initials?
I do.
Why is that important?
Because it's what's inside there is what I seized that day or the next day at the auto pound,
To keep the chain of custody,
to
right?
keep the chain of custody.
To indicate that you were the one that seized it.
Pardon?
To make sure that people know that you're the one that seized the item.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So, let's talk about the first shell casing that you found and you marked as A.
Okay.
Okay.
Refer to my note here.
And what are you referring to?
I have my report.
Okay? Was helping in your testimony if you were able to refer to it?
Yes. I've made a little note. Is that okay if I use this?
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Are these handwritten notes that you prepared for your testimony today?
Yes. If not, I can use this.
Your Honor, if defense counsel would like to view it, this is something in preparation for testimony, I believe, allowed. Permission to approach the witness?
Yes, you may. Is there an objection by the defense?
No.
Okay. Going back to the first item you collected that you listed as A. Where did you find that item and what was it?
It's a shell casing on victim number 1, who's in the front right seat, on her right shoulder.
Okay, is that what we're looking at here in State's Exhibit 20?
It is.
have a circle here, a circle that, well, it's gone now, but, all right, there we go. So we have a red circle that circled that shell casing there. Is that A?
That's A.
And where was that found?
On the right shoulder of Amani, in the front right seat.
Okay. And you identified the victims for the jury earlier. How did you identify them in your report? You said victim 1 and victim 2. Who was victim 1? Where's that body position? And who is victim 2? Where's that body position?
Victim 1 is in the front right seat. Victim 2 is in the back right seat.
Okay. So this shell casing that's in Exhibit 20 is from victim 1, and it is identified as A.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Now we're looking at State's Exhibit number 21, and that is victim 2. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we're looking at a shell casing at victim's 2 left foot. Is that right?
Yes. By her left foot. It's right where the sock and yes, right where it's circled.
Okay. And if we go to the next exhibit, I believe it's a zoomed in view of that.
It is.
Okay, that's State's Exhibit number 22. And that shell casing was labeled as what?
That shell casing is B.
B. Okay. State's Exhibit number 23 here. More of a close-up view.
More to show the position of the victim 2.
Okay. And how was her body position?
Slumped and leaning on the right door, right back door.
Okay. And that door was locked?
Yes, it was.
Now we're looking at State's Exhibit number 24.
Yes.
This is a shell casing under the victim 2's right leg. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Okay. And what did you mark this shell casing as?
It's C.
C. State's Exhibit number 25. I don't see a shell casing or projectile in this photograph. But why did you photograph?
This is a close contact wound on victim number 2.
Okay. And what can you see around the wound?
You can see powder, and you can also see where the wound has what looks like burn marks around it.
Okay. What does that tell you as a crime scene investigator?
That the weapon was very, very close to the victim.
We're now looking at State's Exhibit number 26. This is the driver's side door, the interior pocket. Is that right?
It is.
Tell us what is significant in this photograph.
This photograph has the magazine for the weapon in the driver's door there. You can see that the magazine has what you can see one round exposed in it at the top of it. That's a live bullet. It hasn't been fired.
You only found one?
Yes,
Did you collect that as evidence?
I did.
And then also, what do you see next to the magazine?
The cigarettes, the
Okay.
empty pack of cigarettes.
Okay. And what you said you had seen earlier, there were ashes on the outside of that driver's door, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
State's Exhibit 27, and here we also have a shell casing. There's going to be a couple of photographs, I think. One's going to be closer view. You see it there. Is that by the driver's seat?
Between the driver's seat and the interior, the edge of the doorway opening.
Okay. I think our next photograph. Okay. Now, looking at State's Exhibit number 28. Same shell casing, but
Yes.
a closer view. Is that right?
It is.
What did you identify and mark that shell casing as?
That one is D.
So we're now on D.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you took, or when you noted that when you first arrived and you looked at the taxi, there were some items at victim one, feet,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So now that you are into the vehicle, are you going through those items?
Yes.
Okay? We're looking here at a passport. Can you tell who this passport is for?
It's for victim 2, Sarah, and that's in the back seat.
Okay. Do you recall the other 2 passports, who they were for?
One was for Patricia, and I don't know if it was another passport. There was I think a social security card also. I'd have to look.
Would help you to review your report to refresh
Yes.
your memory?
Let's see. Two passports for Sarah, and a social security card for Sarah, and a passport for Patricia.
Patricia Said.
Yes, Patricia
Okay.
Said.
2 passports for Sarah, social security card for Sarah, and a passport for Patricia Said. Okay? Moving on. Now on the screen, we have State's Exhibit 30, and this view is from the front passenger seat billboard. Is that right, Officer Hazard?
It is.
Okay.
We have removed the victim 1, Amani, and after we removed her, then I could see this shell casing.
Okay. So you removed victim 1,
Yes.
and are you doing that with the assistance of the medical examiner?
Yes.
Okay. And now, what is invisible to your eye is a shell casing on the floorboard.
It is.
Okay. Did you mark that shell casing with identifying?
That one is E.
Now we're at E. So that's shell casing E. And this is a close-up view, State's Exhibit 31.
It is.
Same shell casing E.
It is.
Okay. And that is the body that you removed, victim 1.
That is.
Okay. And that's State's Exhibit 32. Sorry.
It is.
Yes. Now we're looking at State's Exhibit 33. Now what's significant about here, and you tell me, but I see a seat buckle that is frayed.
Right. This is where victim number 1 was sitting, and just to her right, the seatbelt has a bullet hole through it, and there's a bullet hole in the doorpost there.
And what do we see here that's filmed on the seat itself?
It's some blood.
Now moving to State's Exhibit number 34. Victim 2 has since been removed. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, now, Officer Hazard, I see black marker here. Who
Correct.
would have done that?
I did that.
Okay, and what is that an outline of?
Before we moved victim number 2, I outlined where she was sitting on the seat so that it would be an aid to us later when we're seeing how the projectiles pass through.
Okay. And when you're removing her body from the back seat, the door was locked or unlocked?
It was locked. This door was locked.
Okay. And you said you had the medical examiners assist you with removing her body?
The medical examiner and the transport crew were outside the door, and I was sitting beside her. Originally, I thought she would fall out when we opened the door, so I held her. And it wasn't necessary because she was in rigor by then, which stiffens the body up, and she stayed in that position, but I stayed to help guide her out of the car so we wouldn't knock anything loose in there.
Okay. And this is State's Exhibit 34. Now I see 1, 2, 3 shell casings where
Correct.
the victim would have been seated,
Correct.
okay? How did you identify those?
Those are, let me put my glasses on. F, G, and H. F, G, and H.
Okay? Would you state exhibit 35? And of course, it's here on the screen, there's bloods under those shell casings.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that after you removed victim number 2?
Yes, it is.
And the stiffness you described earlier, can you see that photograph?
Still somewhat, you can, because of the shape of her legs.
States exhibit 35? 36, excuse me. Okay. Same view here,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, same view. This is just a closer up view, and it's also showing a shell casing on the
Shell
floor.
casing. So we should see a shell casing here in states exhibit number 37, and that is on the floorboard.
Yes, ma'am.
And now in states exhibit 38, it's more of a close-up. So that's the back right floorboard.
It is.
Did you identify that shell casing?
This one is I.
Now these photographs these photos are done at the auto pound the next day. Is that right?
They are.
Okay. And was it just you, or did you have a partner helping you on that day?
My partner, Eric Mosby, helped me with doing this.
Okay. So in states exhibit number 38, I 39, I see a yellow kind of stick going through that seatbelt that we saw earlier that was frayed.
Yes, ma'am.
Will you tell the jury what that is?
It's a trajectory rod, or a fiberglass rod that you can use if you have a bullet hole with another bullet hole. You can use it to line up and see what the trajectory of that projectile was, as long as you know that that's the same projectile that's making both holes.
Okay, so if you have 2 holes,
Yes,
you can use this trajectory rod to see the pathway of the bullet.
correct.
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. So the next few pictures we'll see will have several of those rods.
yes.
And I'll have you kind of go through some of those. Okay. So now, state exhibit 40. Okay. We see how many rods in this photograph?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. 5 rods, and that's where victim number 2 was seated.
Okay, so what's significant about these trajectory rods?
They're showing that the angle of the pathways of the bullets.
Okay. Are you able to gather from your work here the direction?
Yes.
Okay. Tell the jury what you were able to ascertain.
It looks like that there was 2 directions of fire from this photograph. You can see the 2 upper ones are more straight into the seat, and then the 3 this way, coming back this way, are more towards the driver's seat.
Now, at some point, Officer Hazard, you marked these with also identified,
Yes,
and they're letters as well.
they are.
Okay, so we'll continue going through. That's more of a lit view.
Yes, ma'am. Just another view showing the rods.
Okay.
And this is one from the driver's seat.
Okay. Now here, I think I see some of your letters on the screen.
Yes,
Okay. This is State's Exhibit 42.
it is.
Will you please tell the jury, and kind of explain again, which rods did you think were going from a particular direction? The pathway.
It looks like, see if I can see as well. A and B are more straight into the seat, more from the passenger area, the front passenger area, and then C, D, and E are more from the driver's seat area.
Okay, and when you're saying more from the passenger area, more from the driver's seat area, you mean that that's where?
The angle where they originate, the
The angle
angle
from
for
where-
where they originate.
Thank you. Okay, moving along. Looking at State's Exhibit number 43. Here I see a projectile.
Yes. This is on the trunk mat when we open the trunk at the pound.
Okay? Did you put a marker on that identifier?
Yes, that's K.
That's K.
That's spent projectile, not a shell casing.
Okay? This is State's Exhibit 44. That's a close-up view.
It is.
Okay. State's Exhibit 45.
45 is showing another projectile in between the seat back and the lining for the trunk.
Okay? That's a close-up view in 46.
It is. That's another spent projectile, and that one is labeled as L. That's it again, closer up.
47, and that's State's Exhibit 47. Now looking at State's Exhibit 48, I see some holes by the tire wheel.
Yes, ma'am. These are the right back tire, which should be directly behind victim number 2. And there's 3 holes that exit the vehicle. So 3 projectiles pass through there.
Did you find any of those projectiles at the scene?
No.
What does that tell you in your experience as a crime scene investigator?
The shooting did not occur where the car was found.
And did you mark, I'll keep going. Okay.
This is showing another projectile that's between the seat and the back of the car, right beside victim number 2.
So back right seat,
Yeah, back right seat area. It's another projectile.
and that would have been M?
That is M.
M as in
M.
mom.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And that is State's Exhibit 49 for the record, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, looking at State's Exhibit 50. Yeah. Can you see that, Officer Hazard?
No, I can't. I think I need glasses.
You don't need them.
Other than what I've got here, my reading glasses. Okay, this is another spent projectile. No, this is M. This is M.
Okay,
It's a closer up view of M.
okay. Going to State's Exhibit number 51.
Okay, this is a spent projectile in the doorpost where I said the bullet passed through the seat belt into the doorpost. This is that doorpost where we pulled the trim back and we've located the projectile that did that.
That will be the front seat passenger?
Yes.
Victim 1? Where
Yes.
we saw that frayed seatbelt.
That's it, correct.
Okay.
That's a closer up view, but it's not in very good focus. This was before digital cameras.
And is this in?
In, that's in,
In is in Nancy.
yes,
Okay. And that's State's Exhibit 52.
yes.
Going to State's Exhibit number 53.
Okay, this is where I'm labeling the bullet holes. These are the holes where the projectiles pass through beside, from victim number 2 through the seat area and then through the car by the wheel well. The picture we saw of the wheel well earlier, this is the inside part of that. And I've labeled them A, B, C, or A, B, E, and D on this. D is not a hole, D is an indention.
Okay. And that states exhibit number 54.
54 is the back seat. We pulled the back seat out enough to where we can put the trajectory rods through, and then we can see how the bullet passed through that seat cushion. And so where B is on this side, if you look on the front side, that's B. D is D on the front side, D on this side. So we're able to show how the bullet passed. Same with A and E.
Okay. Now looking at 55, the last state's exhibit, underneath the arm of victim 2, are you able to see an item?
Yes, that's the cell phone.
Did you collect that item?
Yes.
Did you view that just as it was before you went into the vehicle, you were able to view that cell phone?
Pardon?
So you took this photograph on the exterior of the vehicle?
Yes,
Okay,
on the exterior.
okay, thank you. Okay. Officer Hazard, all of the projectiles and shell casings in this case were collected and restored as evidence with your initials, is that right?
Yes, they were.
Okay, did you also retrieve any other items from the taxi cab and collect those and submit them as property?
I did.
What did you collect?
The back seat, both the seat cushion that you sit on and the part you lean against, and then the door panel here. That's what's in front of me. At the feet of victim number 1, I collected the camera bag. There's a few things that I've collected. A pill bottle. I believe that's it, mostly for the car.
Okay. At this time, I'm gonna ask you to help me open these items for the jury, okay?
Okay.
After I've offered them. Your Honor, may I approach the witness? You may. Yes, I'm also gonna hand you some goals.
Thank you.
Just send this form. You need larger gloves?
No, these fine.
Okay.
Unless they go up to my elbow.
All right. We'll start with the shell casing and the hazard of handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 56.
Yes.
We're doing exhibits 57 and 103. Are you familiar with these items in these exhibits?
Let's see.
You might have to open this
We have to open that, yes.
one. On 57 and 56, do they have any identifying markers with the information?
Yes, they have my name and batch number on them and the date and time.
You're now removing from State's Exhibit 103. Does that also have your name?
It does.
Okay? And so 56, 57, and 103, all look to be items you collected at this?
They are
From the scene?
items I collected at the scene.
Okay. Your Honor, State offers items, State's Exhibits 56, 57, and 103.
No objection.
State's Exhibits 56, 57, and 103 are admitted for all purposes.
Officer Hodge, do you mind stepping down? It might be easier for us to just
Okay.
do them all at the same time.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have description on 103.
Now showing your State's Exhibit number 59. Let's see if we can make sure the jury can see. 75 and 105.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and items recovered, will you identify these items?
Yes, let's see. 59 is a cell phone. And these are, let's see, projectiles from the victims.
Okay.
Which exhibit specifically?
75 is a bullet from Amina Saeed, and 105 is a bullet from Sarah Saeed, is that
Yes.
right? State offers 59, 75, and 105.
No objection.
State's Exhibits 59, 75, and 105 are admitted for all purposes.
Okay. And just for the record, in States 103, that's been admitted, what is contained in 103?
A live 9mm bullet. And this one, I believe is the one from the magazine. Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's okay. I noticed in there is a metal ammo can.
Okay. That's recovered by Urban PD.
It was recovered by Irving PD, actually from Investigator Johnson.
Okay.
I can barely hear.
I can't hear it all.
What exhibit is that?
States Exhibit 58.
58? And what is 58?
It's an ammo can that's collected by Investigator Johnson.
Object to the relevance of this, number one. and he's
Can
not
you
here.
stand up while you're addressing the court, please?
Yes. Object to the relevance, number one, and he's not here to sponsor, number two.
Okay. This witness did not retrieve this piece of evidence from the scene?
No, Your Honor. He has viewed this piece of evidence, but he is not the person who placed it in property.
And he's not the one that retrieved it from the scene?
No, this piece of evidence was not retrieved from the scene, Your Honor.
Okay. Defense objection is sustained.
Then, at this time, we offer it for record purposes, Your Honor.
No objection to record.
State Exhibit 58 is admitted for record purposes only.
Okay. Showing with the mark of State Exhibit number 62.
This number 62 is the driver's, or the back right door panel near victim 2.
And it has your identifying.
It is. It's what I see is at the auto panel.
Okay. State Exhibit 61.
51 is the...
61.
61. Let's see, this is the back seat of the seat that victim number 2 was sitting on. This back seat is, let me check my notes. Is it either the back seat or the seat itself? Let me see where 7 is. Okay, 7 is, let's see, the seat portion. That is the seat portion that she would be sitting on.
Please take a look at State Exhibit 60.
16, this would be the back seat that victim number 2 was leaning against.
Okay? State Officer State Exhibit 60, 61, and 62.
State Exhibit 60, 61, and 62 are admitted for all purposes.
Okay. I'm showing with the mark of State Exhibit 76.
76 is the clothing from
And one of the victims?
from one of the victims. I'd have to look at it to see.
Okay. And State Exhibit 106.
Clothing from the other victim.
Okay? We offer State Exhibit 76 and 106 for record purposes.
No objection.
State Exhibit 76, and did you say 3106 or and 106?
And 106, Your Honor.
Okay. State Exhibit 76 and 106 are admitted for record purposes.
Okay. You have permission to publish these items that were admitted?
You may.
Okay. Officer Hazard, if you can, we're gonna go through these. You're welcome to take your seat or stand however you feel comfortable. You've already opened State Exhibit 103. Stand here, this is a live bullet.
That's a live bullet. It's not been fired, and that was in the magazine.
The magazine you're referring to, that's in State Exhibit 57.
Yes, State Exhibit 57 is the magazine that was in the driver's door. It's a 12-round magazine.
And 105 were admitted, correct?
Which number?
75 and 105? Yes. Okay. Ms. Patrick?
That's correct.
Okay. So please, open these and tell the jury what's contained today.
Okay. This is the projectile recovered from victim number 1. That's number 75, State's Exhibit 75. That's from victim number 1. Oh, cut into it? Okay. Let's see, I'll do this one.
And victim 1 was Amina Syed, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, now we're looking into State's Exhibit 105.
State's Exhibit number 105 has projectiles recovered from Sarah, which is victim number 2. And this goes in this envelope and this envelope. So the saves of this. Yeah. This other one stays with that one.
Now looking at State's Exhibit number 59, which is the cell phone. Would you please open that?
Yes, I will. Cell phone, victim number 2's. Would you like me to open this?
Yes, we're now looking at State's Exhibit number 56, that contains the shell casings and projectiles.
Correct, that were recovered from the car.
And how many total?
10. Well, 10 canisters. Or let's see. Let me open this and check to make sure. Okay, let me separate them because there's. Okay. There are 10 shell casings and 4 projectiles.
And there were 9 projectiles total, is that right?
We can account for 9 at the scene. Now 10.
Okay. 4 that you recovered here.
4 I recovered. 3 of them, like we say, went through the part by victim number 2 into the wheel well. Those 3 are gone.
Never recovered.
Never recovered, so that would have been 7. And then 1 each from the victim, so that would be 9. And then 1 from the tank top of victim number 2. That's 10.
Okay. And you
Are you talking about projectiles or casings?
projectiles. I'm going to turn you to report page 3. Do you remember recalling or opinion there were a total of 10 shell casings and 9 projectiles?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes. 10 shell casings, 9 projectiles.
And how have you labeled these shell casings? A through G? Or, I'm sorry.
No, they're skipped around by how I found them.
Okay.
Let me see.
But the letters that you numbered them from were A through,
A through L, I think, or N. A through N. A through N. So shell casings, let's see, are A, G, B, C, D, F, I, J, E, and H. So projectiles would be L, M, N, and K.
okay. And then for the shell casings, did you find a particular brand of ammunition?
There was 3 different brands of ammunition. A and G were a Merc, AMERC, 9mm RH. And then B, C, D, F, I, J, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shell casings were FCNT, 9mm Luger. 2 shell casings, E and H, were Winchester 9mm.
So 3 of them have
Right.
one.
And if you count the live one in the magazine, that was a Winchester also.
Now, I want to you want to help step down and help us open the larger items? Start with this is exhibit 60 that we're now opening.
I'm sorry.
60, 60. cushion.
Correct.
That victim 2 would have been sitting,
Victim number 2 is right here,
okay?
leaning this way. I'm sorry, what?
We're trying to show this side off the
Yeah.
back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have your letters indicated here, B,
Correct.
D, A, and D.
Right.
Remind us what this was for.
What they do is this is with the trajectory rod, so if the front of I put the end of the trajectory rod here in B, and this is where it comes out on this side is B. Okay, A is, the trajectory rod goes on the front of this side of A, and A comes out right here. Okay, same with D and E.
Yes, if you could please open State's Exhibit number 61.
And 62? That's right.
Okay, so that would be the bottom part of the back seat that victim 2 was seated on,
Yes.
okay? I see that there is a coin here underneath a piece of tape.
Yes.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Why?
It was found there, so I left it just where it was.
That's to preserve the evidence as you
Yes.
found it, okay?
Yes.
I also see some spots there. What is that?
spots? This is blood here?
Yes, blood,
Yes.
okay? And then I have your outline that was shown in the photographs.
Right, this is showing her left leg, her right leg. This is where her rear end would be, and then she's slumped down in the seat. This is up a little bit higher, so she's slumped down in the seat.
Okay, one more. Looking for the scissors?
See this hand. Let's try this hand.
So this is the back right seat passenger's door
Yes, door panel,
panel,
right, and that shows, where her head was.
and you've marked it there how her head was slumped over.
Yes,
So this would have been how the car would have been positioned when you went through and collected the evidence.
yes, pretty much, it's maybe leaned back a little bit, but that's basically it.
Okay? Thank you, Officer Hazard. You wanna go back and stand? Officer Hazard, I asked you, when you were looking through the shell casings and projectiles,
Yes, ma'am.
the different brands, and you listed 3 different brands.
Yes, ma'am.
Can all those brands be loaded from the same magazine? Do you have to have the same brand in one magazine?
No, you can have a mix. Very often, that's what we see, people sometimes mix ammo, sometimes on purpose, or sometimes it's just what they have. The
So
only
if you-
exception is police officers usually have a duty ammo that they have to stay with.
Okay, so police officers are the only persons you know of that have a specific duty ammo they have to
Right.
use.
It's up to the individual after that. It's,
Individual can put whatever they want in there, mix
Correct.
and match, and that means that that can be all loaded from the same gun.
as long as it's a 9mm Luger, like all of these are, it can all be loaded in that magazine.
Okay, and so these bullets, the shell casings, the projectiles were all found to belong to a 9mm
Yes,
gun, and that is a firearm,
yes it is.
and that is a deadly weapon.
Yes it is.
And when you were examining the scene and collecting the evidence, you collected obviously everything that you thought that had any type of evidentiary value for court. Did you find a gun? Was there a gun recovered?
No, there was not.
Now, at some point, did you go to see if there was any surveillance cameras on site at the Omni?
Yes, I did.
Okay, tell the jury a little bit about that. Did you recover one?
I seized the tape. However, the tape itself was absolutely useless. It doesn't show the area that we're looking for. The outside view that they have is actually around the corner from where this happened. There is a person walking away in the video, but you can't tell gender, race, anything. It's at night, so it was nothing.
Okay, so it was hard to see, grainy video, you couldn't make out anybody.
Correct.
Why did you seize it though?
Because it's the only outside camera that they have, so we're going to take whatever they got.
Okay. Was that camera able to view the taxi driveway, which
No.
is where the cars were at?
No,
Okay. So nothing of note in that video?
no.
Officer Hazard, did you fingerprint the taxi cab?
No,
Okay, tell the jury why you did.
because on the 911 call, victim number 2 says my dad shot me, and said some other things, but my dad shot me. So we knew who the shooter was, so there's no need to fingerprint. Also, it's a taxi cab, so fingerprints wouldn't really prove a lot from a taxi cab.
Is that because different persons enter a taxi cab, getting rides?
Yes.
Okay. So it was your decision not to do that?
Yes, it was.
Now I'll pass the witness.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess for the day at this point. Let's be back here at 8:45 in the morning. Please remember that you are still under the court's instructions, not to discuss with each other, to discuss with any other persons, or to research social media, listen to the news regarding this case, or any other information regarding this case that's not coming from the witness stand, okay? Thank you very much for your patience today.